Welcome back to All Hands on Decks on the Winning Hand channel. My name is Boomguy. I'm here with Andy.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, man?
It's going all right. How about yourself?
You know, I could complain, but nobody wants to hear that. That's not good content, so I
Sure.
won't.
It could be a
Instead,
separate podcast, like
it could.
All Hands Complaint.
I like that. Complaints on decks? I don't know.
Ooh.
We need to find an. All right, listeners, viewers, let me know. We're going to start a new series. You're going to hear me complaining for 30 to 40 minutes. Let me know what it should be called. I'm just kidding. None of that's true, but welcome back to Winning Hand. I'm here with our kind of regular weekly deck building series called All Hands on Decks, where we go through decks that we think you should be checking out that maybe you haven't seen because they haven't gotten quite enough likes. We have kind of a rating system where we talk about, we fit these decks into loose archetypes around Spike, Johnny, and Timmy. And today we decided to focus on all about Timmy decks. So the theme for today's episode is all Timmy decks. And the reason we chose that is because we often haven't had a lot of Timmy decks. And it can be a difficult deck archetype to find. And I think that's because of the game. So I just want to talk very quickly before we start about what a Timmy deck really is. And then we're going to go through one deck in each aspect. So, Andy, in your opinion, in your view, in a cooperative game like this, what is a Timmy deck?
Yeah, so the way that I definitely see Timmy decks is that they're just looking to do like one or two big things. They're not looking at creating a ton of decisions or trying to do a lot of comboing. They just want to play, do a big thing, move on. And so like I definitely think, and you know, one of my deck picks today, I think of Hulk as the ultimate Timmy player of like, dude is just gonna smack down right away. Like that is his thing.
Dude goes hard.
Right? So that's what I think of when I think of Timmy decks for sure.
Yeah, to me, I think the kind of defining characteristics of a Timmy deck in this context are simplicity. That is like the decision space is a little more limited. There are, fewer decisions to have to make at each decision point. And you're not searching. There's no you're not trying to find a card or a combo or a certain thing. You're not playing the most efficient way necessarily. You might be. And the other thing I think it really kind of says Timmy to me is the big splashiness of it. So it could be a big event. It could be a big ally, expensive. Maybe it doesn't have to be expensive, but just like big and impactful and splashy. Those are kind of the ways I think about Timmy decks, and I think we're kind of on the same page there.
Yeah, like less on the control side, more on just plowing through whatever it is. Like I think less in terms of will this win or lose, and more of will I get to do something big.
Yes, I think that's true. I think also Timmy often lends itself to newer players or more inexperienced players. Not always. There are Timmy players who just like to play that way, but I think if you are introducing a new player, a Timmy deck is often a nice way to do that because they don't have quite as much to think about turn to turn. So we have some good examples of that today. Before we start, though, I want to ask you what you've been playing recently because I am dying to tell everybody what I've been playing recently. So before I ask you, I'm going to ask myself. Boom Guy, what have you been playing? I have been playing a deck by Andy R. Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Which one?
Well, Andy, I played a Doctor Strange deck that you built. Do you know the deck I'm talking about?
I do know the deck. Well, I assume you're talking about the Strange Pool deck.
Yeah. Have you made more than one Doctor Strange deck?
I have. I've made a few, but none nearly as powerful as that one.
There are a lot of decks. So the one that you made is called Invoke the Fourth Wall, Break the Game. And I'm not going to show it on screen. I will leave a link down below if you guys want to look at it.
Oh, thanks.
It's pretty popular. But I recently had an itch to play Doctor Strange again. And so I started looking through and I thought, this is all, it's going to be too strong. I'm not going to have a great time because it's going to feel too easy. And I like it to feel challenging. So I was like, well, what can I do that's different, right? Ally spam, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I found this deck that uses Mulligan, which I think most pool decks use because it's probably the standout pool card that exists.
Yeah.
But the idea that you can play, we don't play, that you can resolve invocations
Right.
had never occurred to me. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, this is genius because now I can just spam a bunch of these invocations because you're not actually playing them. And then
Yeah.
I can just play mulligan and replenish my hand. There's so many resources in this deck. I had turns where I like had nothing to do. There was just so many
Yeah.
resources in my hand. There's nothing left to play, and I have all these resources on the board. It was ridiculous, and it was a great time.
That's
I
awesome.
Yeah, I had a good time. I took it through Red Skull and
Nice.
Claw and Band of Badoon, or not Band of Badoon, Drang.
That's awesome.
Those are the three I took it through, and it smoked every single one of them. It was not even close. One player, true solo, and
Yeah.
it was a ton of fun. So that was a really fun deck. So I just wanted to kind of give
That's
a shout
cool.
out to that deck. If people want to see, I'll put the
Thanks.
link down below. But yeah, awesome, cool idea. What have you been
Thanks.
playing?
Yeah. So funny enough, that was actually the first deck I ever posted to Marvel CDB. So it was like I feel
You're a
like I
genius.
just did my magnum opus at the start, and now everything's downhill from there.
I love it.
But yeah, so recently started taking a couple of people to like introducing the game to them. So I've done a lot of precons, and I always forget how fun that core box set of precons are, just in terms of how much interplay they have with each other. Like I think when I think of precons, I usually am like, oh, these are inefficient and whatever. But the amount of multiplayer that they have, at least like that core box together, was like, oh my gosh, this is a ton of fun. So been doing that, and then I think on the side, Magneto Aggression. I love if I'm gonna do a solo game. That has right now been my deck of choice that I've loved doing.
Okay. All right. Well, listeners, I will put links to some of these decks we've been playing down below if you want to check them out. Feel free.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I'm glad it was a good time.
Yeah, it was a great
yeah,
time. I'm not a big Strange fan, so I have not played him in
yeah,
a few years, I don't think. But
sure,
I try to get back to everybody once in a while.
yeah.
Even Strange.
Even Strange.
Okay, so let's jump into what we actually came here to talk about, and that is Timmy Dix. So I'm just going to
Timmy!
go through the aspects alphabetically because I don't really know
Sure.
a better way to do it.
Yeah.
We each brought a few decks. I brought 2, you brought 3. You're the expert deck builder, so I figured you should bring more.
Thanks.
And I'm going to share this on screen and let you talk about, because the first deck is one that you brought today,
Yeah.
and it is...
Funny enough, Magneto Aggression. So Magneto Aerial Aggression, and I think this is very much a Timmy deck because it uses 2 of the best Timmy cards possible, Dive Bomb and Full Body Charge. And I think like you said earlier, like when you think Timmy, Dive Bomb, just
Dive Bomb is
with
the
some
prototypical Timmy card, I think, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just, it says Timmy all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And this deck is all about just doing damage. It does require aerial, so you are going to be using your magnetic pull to get your cape out because all capes make people fly. And
Unless you're Adam Warlock.
unless you're Adam Warlock, that poor
Sorry, bro.
guy. I know. And in this one, you have 6 cards that do 7 damage. You have 3 cards that do 4 damage and 2 cards that do 5 damage. So 64 damage is available to you each deck pass. Like this is ready to just hit hard. There's not much setup. Like you can bring out Death Focus, you can bring out Combat Training, you can bring out like even the supports just help you draw attack events. So I think this is very Timmy to me.
Did you play this deck?
I did play this deck.
Okay.
It's I will say I haven't won with it, but have played it.
I mean, I have not played this deck, but I can see a few things that I might think about changing. But let me hear your recommendations first as someone who played it. Are there things about this that you would change or that you did change after playing it?
Yeah, so I didn't change anything, though I should have. And some of it is my play style is very different. So when I see this many supports, like I think I'm gonna prioritize the support instead of realizing like no, just defend with Magneto and then do damage with your hand. And if you keep doing that consistently, you should win. But that's a hard thing for me to want to hold on to. But as far as what I would change, so If you're going to rely on something like Aerial and you have one card that helps you get there, then I think adding in multiple ways of helping you summon that card. So I think of the player side scheme of superpower training that at least gives you another way to get that card. And then I am not a fan of digging deep with Magneto, so I'd probably replace him out for aggressive energy or something like that. Just because one every 2 to 3 cards is going to be a magnetic card. So you're just not going to discard it enough. You're more likely to draw it into a hand than you are to discard into digging deep.
Yeah. So this is kind of my big issue with Magneto, and I don't want to get off on a tangent because this is about Timmy Dex, not about Magneto,
Sure.
but I do find some consistency issues because you're discarding so many cards.
Hmm.
I find that when I've played him, a lot of the aspect cards I put in feel a lot more inconsistent because I'm having to discard them in order to do his ability, his
Yeah.
magnetic pull. So often I'll like do a magnetic pull and then I pull, I don't know, I discard a bunch of events I want and pull in some card I don't really want that much. Like,
Yeah.
his asteroid M or whatever.
Yeah. Oh. No, I'm
Um,
kidding. I get it.
so I think digging deep here is also maybe one I would cut. The
Yeah.
power of aggression immediately cried out to me with these expensive events.
Yeah.
Also, honed technique seems to be a pretty big omission. I don't know
Yeah.
if I would run Dive Bomb in 2024 without honed technique in the deck.
That's a great call out. That hone technique can, I mean, and for people who don't know, it for any aggression event that you pay for with a mental, it will add to the damage the cost of the card.
Which is insane. I think that is the card that makes Dive Bomb playable, frankly.
Sure.
And it increases every instance. So of course it says you deal four damage for 4 cost. I should say it deals 7 damage and then 1 damage to every other enemy. But Hone Technique adds that 4 cost to both instances, so it becomes 4 for 11 and 5 to everybody else, which essentially wipes most board states. It's the
Yeah.
closest like a board wipe that we have in this game, and it's insane. So yeah, I don't know if I would play it without Hone Technique. So those are kind of things. Again, I haven't played this deck, so
Sure.
take my feedback for what you will. Phrase 311. Maybe your deck is better than I give it credit for, but those are just some things when I look in and give you some critiques. I do like Pitchback, for an
Yeah.
aerial deck. That's a card I think is really cool and underrated. So that's definitely Yaw and Roll is the other one, the Justice version. I think those are both really cool cards that people kind of are sleeping on to some degree.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that inclusion here. But yeah, that's good. And it's a good deck overall. Seems to be not
Yeah.
a lot of decision points. Just like the biggest event you have in your hand, play that event. Done.
Yep. Absolutely. Like if someone wanted to try out Magneto, like it gives them the exercise of the magnetic pull, but like really all you're doing is you're just adding resource to your hand in order to help pay for whatever the next big card is, or maybe play 2 attack events or something like that.
Yeah. No, it's good. Anything else to say before I move on to our next deck?
No, let's take a look at I can do the alphabet. Justice. Justice is the next one.
You can do the alphabet, and Justice again is one of your decks.
Yes.
So what is the deck that you brought for us to see today, Andy?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, I don't think you can talk Timmy without talking Hulk.
No.
So I busted out a Hulk deck in Justice. And this one I love because it is very much in that Timmy style of a lot of the events are 3 cost. And in Hulk, that's wonderful because that's 3 to play, 1 for the card. That's your hand. You don't have to worry about like, oh, how do I make the math work? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so this one, particularly the use of Crisis Averted, I think is a very, very Timmy card. Though it works great in combo decks. Like I wished Overwatch were here. This deck came out before Overwatch was around. But Crisis Averted for Overwatch and Overwatch, you're just 6 off the main, 6 off anywhere else that you want.
It's wild.
That's so good. And so it's a very big Timmy card. And basically in this deck is you're just dealing damage. You hit your Crisis Averted as your way of just reset the main scheme so that you can just keep going at the villain. And so even your allies like Nick Fury and Mockingbird, they are gonna help once again just support that whole Timmy thing. And I think this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it has 3 copies of Concussive Blow, 3 copies of Crisis Averted, and 3 copies of For Justice. Those are the Justice events included here. Just to kind of go through the deck list quickly, we also have Agent Coulson as a Justice ally, and we have Ironheart, Mockingbird, Nick Fury. The 3 double resources. No, we have 2. We have Genius and Strength. Then we have Power in All of Us and Power of Justice. Avengers Mansion, Helicarrier, and Quinn Carrier. And 3 copies of Espionage, which comes into play because 3 of the 4 allies are spies, right? Nick Fury, Mockingbird, and Agent Coulson. You have to control a spy to play it, so I can see the logic there. I am surprised it didn't have any other of those preparations.
Yeah, like I think counterintelligence is a nice one of if the
Spycraft?
villain. Yeah, the control your encounter card.
Yeah,
And I think here the hope is just that espionage it's not a max 1 per player. So like once you get a surge, just trigger them all. Get yourself a +6 hand size.
that's true.
But I do think you're right. Some of the others are nice to give Coulson a target for. But then also, I will say this runs 2 copies of the Power in All of Us, but not all 3 doubles. If you are going to go Genius, and some of it is you want to manage your physical resources for Hulk. But I will say that a double is a double no matter what the context, whereas the Power in All of Us only targets basics as a double. So it may be worthwhile to run 1 Power in All of Us and 1 energy instead of just 2 Power in All of Us's. But
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Power in All of Us is a strong card, as is Power of Justice, but they're just strictly worse than the basic double resources in every scenario. So I guess I'd have to talk to this deck builder why they didn't include that. It seems an odd choice to me. Like you said, that might be one way I would add in a double resource there. It does have some expensive stuff. Avengers Mansion, Helicarrier, Queen Carrier, all expensive.
absolutely.
I might have. I think this came out before player side schemes, but a player side scheme would probably help here. Build support. With For Justice there, it's one you can clear right away, and that pulls in a Queen Carrier or Helicarrier. That would be super helpful. But I don't have a ton of feedback here. I think this looks pretty solid. Hulk is what he is. He has limitations, and he seems to work around those.
Absolutely. And I know that there's a lot of people who resources, they want to limit the number of them. And I actually think Hulk is actually someone who's great with more resources because you want to try to optimize your hand to have a resource and some other cards to help support it. So actually, because his hand size is 4, having more is not actually that bad in comparison to other heroes. Because chances are you're not going to have a dead hand. You're only looking to play 1 event anyway.
Right.
You'll probably have 1 event and then the resources to pay for it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think having more resources in Hulk makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Okay. Well, any last thoughts on Operation Hulk and Fury by Sim de Roses?
The only last thought I'll give is I hope lots of people play this one. Give Hulk a chance as a Timmy player, and if you have a Timmy in your life like I do, Hulk is the hero. It changes everything when it comes to the way the table plays. Like I think having someone who usually takes 30 minutes for their turn, and then you hand them Hulk, and it's like it's a 1 minute turn is a game changer for the whole table.
All we're saying, right? Give Hulk a chance.
Give chance. That's right.
All right. I'm not going to sing that because that would be outrageous. Okay,
You should put that in the description of the deck.
Should I?
Yeah, why not? Songs all around.
Songs all around. A lot of songs on Marvel CDB these days.
And it all gets stuck in my head.
I know.
All of a sudden, all I can think of is that song for the day.
Yeah. There's a couple of them recently. I'm not going to say what they are because it's going to get stuck in your head, listener.
Yeah, again.
But there are 2 of them.
For them, for me. It's fair.
I don't care about your head, Andy. You're not paying the bills here. The viewers are. They're the ones clicking the ads. I'm just kidding. True. We don't have ads in this channel. Okay. I'm next because per alphabet, I will share my deck. So my deck is another Timmy deck, but it's all about big, splashy allies. So this deck is called Carol Goes on a Recruiting Spree. It is a pretty new deck. And This is
That's
by a
awesome.
deck builder J_G, and JG has just basically, he even says in the write up, he just built the biggest, baddest ally deck he could, and he uses squared off to pay for them. Also, make the call. So I'll just go through the deck list quickly. For those listening, it has Beast, Beta Ray Bill, Cyclops, Hawkeye, Kid Omega, M, Maria Hill, Nick Fury, White Tiger, X-23. 3 copies of Make the Call, 3 copies of Squared Off. Build support and call for backup. It has the 3 basic doubles, 1 copy of the Power of Leadership, Avengers Mansion, Quinn Carrier, and Clarity of Purpose. So, Clarity of Purpose is insane with Captain Marvel. It's essentially just a Avengers Mansion. Just draw a card. And then Avengers Mansion, Queen Carrier, just more resources. Just a bunch of doubles. This is pretty basic, I would say. This is, from a Timmy perspective, it's just play allies. Play allies from your hand with Squared Off. Play allies from your discard pile with Make the Call. Pay for them with all your cards. That's kind of it.
I love it.
And it wants to play big, bad allies, and she has the economy to pay for it. So the great thing about allies, of course, is you can be in alter ego or hero to play these. So if you flip down and you can activate her commander ability to get even more cards in your hand, it all works. I think this is a fun deck, and I played it once. It's powerful.
That's awesome.
Who knew playing the biggest, baddest allies was good?
It's funny because Carol isn't on my Timmy radar in that, like, when I think of the amount of card draw and support that she does, I think naturally into the Johnny realm of like all the cool combos you can create because her card draw is so huge.
Sure.
But this is a great example. Like you said, her ability to just summon the resources to pay for things, the fact that you want to be able to flip, and things like, I believe Make the Call is just an action. So I think you can still do Make the Call in Alter Ego, which is super awesome. Pay the printed cost of an ally in your discard pile or anyone's discard pile and bring him into play. That is so legit. And then, I think it's a great call out of Clarity of Purpose with Captain Marvel, because you use her energy absorption ability and then or her energy rechannel.
Yep.
Yeah, energy rechannel. So you exhaust your Clarity of Purpose, you lose a health, energy rechannel heals you that health, and then you draw a card, and it's like, my goodness,
it's just another Avengers
so
Mansion.
good. Yeah, it is.
That card goes crazy for her. I think, we're talking about Timmy decks. I wanted to bring some different examples. So this is a different example of a Timmy deck that I think still fits, It's pretty straightforward, pretty basic in terms of strategy, and splashy. So you can just, if you play one card a turn and it's Beta Ray Bill, man, you're happy. Like,
you're great.
That's just
let
good.
him go. Let his 3 attack go nuts. Yeah, and all of these have such great abilities. Like I think of M, who is just like, you have a minion, gone. Minion is gone.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. M isn't a card I played very often, but it is a cool ability. Sometimes it requires some setup with some of the bigger ones. You hit them once and then drop it, just vaporizes. But that's so strong.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it has Cyclops in there. So late in the game, if you have a couple allies out, you drop Cyclops. So one of the things that I did notice in this deck that I changed is it doesn't have Triskelion, which to me in an ally-heavy deck like this is a must. It's a pretty cheap card. It thins your deck out if nothing else, and it allows you a little more flexibility for allies. Some of these allies stick around for a long time. Beta Ray Bill is a long-term ally. Hawkeye is a long-term ally. So you kind of want some of these. X-23, another one that sticks around for a while. So if you're filling up your board with allies you don't necessarily want to immediately leave, Triskelion is just an easy way to get more of them.
Yeah.
But other than that, I might include another copy of Power of Leadership. This is
so many
cards.
of them are blue.
Yeah, I think I'd have gone over 40 here. I'd have added another copy of the resource and maybe Triskelion to go to 42. I don't think you'd notice a difference with the amount of cards she's drawing. So that's kind of... But other than that, wouldn't change much. It was a fun time. It was a pretty straightforward time. I'm usually not a Timmy player, so it's not the most fun, but enjoy the deck.
I definitely want to try this one out. Like I think, yeah, getting to play allies, that's just so good.
Again, if you are watching this or listening to this, I will put links to all of these decks that we discussed down below or in the show notes. Please go check them out. Please, if you like the decks, go and leave a comment and a like or a star for the deck builders. They are really the star of this show, and it's good to see them getting some recognition. So hopefully you go check these out and leave them a comment. Tell them Boomguy sent you, and that'll get you absolutely nothing. Okay, so we have 2 more decks to go, Andy. We have been through 3 decks. This is a marathon.
Yeah, it is. I'm ready. We can finish this.
The viewers are getting their money's worth today.
Ooh.
2 left. Pool is next, and you are the one who brought a pool deck today. And this is not a pool character that I have seen before, but after seeing it, I think it's one that I will likely try out. Why did you pick Gamora, the perfect host?
Yeah, so Gamora, the perfect host, has all of the great attack events and 2 cards that I think are very Timmy. One is, I think, Laser Swords, while it can be Johnny, is a very Timmy of you are just upping that attack by 4. And then the bomb. Not only is the bomb just such a 10 damage, and I think that is the highest one set instance of damage from an action in an aspect around. Granted, you are paying 6, but Gamora has some keen instincts. She can pay for it.
She does, yeah.
And then the best part is her conditioning room. You can recur that the bomb.
It's so ridiculous. Did you play this deck, Andy?
I did. I loved every bit of it. I will say it also, I do consider other cards like Cut Upper, Tackle, very Timmy, Dropkick, very Timmy oriented cards, and that they cost so much. They may not necessarily do the most in terms of damage, but they do the most in terms of effects. So you're putting all into one card and getting a big effect out of it. And I think all those line up to that. This one was really fun because it did speak to the Johnny in me in terms of my ability to control and create the combos if I wanted them. Mm-hmm. But while playing, I felt very Timmy in that it was well, I've got the bomb, so 10 damage.
Here we go.
Move on.
Out of respect for Mr. Fluff Daddy, who is the author of this deck, we should read his deck list out. Do you want to read out what he's got in here?
Yeah, absolutely. It says, the most fun you will have at Marvel Champions, especially if you can get the suit and laser swords on her ASAP. And it's probably got to be one of the best descriptions in Marvel Champions.
Pretty good.
You'll love it. You'll love it if you play it.
I guarantee it.
Absolutely. And it's so true of Symbiote Suit, which gives +1 to all of your stats, +10 health, but it does have a hazard icon on it. Mm-hmm. And laser swords, which means that it's automatically a +1 for that laser sword.
Yeah.
So Gamora will be hitting at a 4 with those 2 on its own.
If you're playing laser swords, the symbiote suits are pretty nice addition. Do you want to read the deck list?
Yeah. Sure. So for allies, we have Blade, Groot, Headpool, Ironheart, Lady Deadpool, Lockjaw, and Martin X, who will help you ready. Mm-hmm. Or maybe that's Major Victory. Just Major kidding. Victory. Martin X. He's bad.
Just cheap ally.
He's just cheap, and he has so much health.
He does.
And then for events, we're adding in 2 concussive blows, 1 cut upper, 1 to bomb, 2 drop kicks, 2 tackles. So all attacks all the time. Your 4 resources are the 3 potential triples: self-confidence, self-control, self-preservation from Pool, and then strength, because why not add some fist to it? And some of that is that I believe concussive blow, drop kick, and tackle all want you to have a fist in them. And so that's why we probably don't see the other doubles. It does have supported by 2 helicarriers, so they are hoping you'll get 1 out quicker. And then your upgrades are Blackout, which will help you heal by spending a resource to move damage onto Blackout. Or no, Blackout is the thwart one. Oh, man, Blackout. It's Tic-Tac-Toe. That's which is also in this one. Yep. Yeah. So Blackout, which helps you on the threat side by moving threat from a scheme to it. Laser Swords, which we've talked to. Stick-to-itiveness, so that way once you bash them for 8 or 9 or 4 or 5, why not just ready up and do it again? So then the Symbiote Suit and Tic-Tac-Toe to help with the damage, which will be good, because you want to be able to hit the triples, especially if you have the bomb. And so tic-tac-toe is a good way to heal back up to that.
So you played this. I have a few recommendations here that I might
Yeah.
suggest, but what
Yeah.
do you think as the one who played it?
Yeah, so I definitely wanted the other doubles, and I'm not super afraid of having more than 5 resources. So I wanted the doubles because I do just want to pay for things. And then it's kind of that same thing where actually I think and this I actually took from your comment on my pool deck, which now I see why you commented that. I think was because you ended up playing it. And that is plot convenience, and that's a good way to store the bomb, because like when you draw it and you may not have the resource capacity for it, put in plot convenience.
Yeah.
So
And
that's the only thing I can really think of.
the great thing about plot convenience is it holds any aspect card, and Gamora has a bunch of different ones. So you can
Yeah.
stash dropkick if you're not ready for it, or you can stash tackle or whatever, or the bomb. So it's just something that, if they're already stunned, you can save cut upper for next turn. I think plot convenience is an awesome card. I do think the lack of the full suite of basic doubles is odd.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2024 or 2025 now, I should say, I still think those cards, those are auto includes for me in every deck. There
Yeah.
has to be a real reason to not include them. There are a few decks where there is a reason. You can make the argument, but I just think I go with them all the time. I can think like on one hand the number of games I've played where I think like, oh man, I have too many of these double resources. I wish I didn't have this in here. It's
Yeah.
very rare, and I do think this deck has a fairly decent cost curve. It's not a bunch of cheap events, which is usually Gamora's kind of deck build of choice. So I think that is one thing. The double helicarrier, I'm not sure about that one. That's one I could go either way on.
Yeah.
But I do think the basic gray ally Venom is a good choice in this deck. I think Venom is a pretty awesome card, provides you with another hazard icon, which can help you with your ultimate goal of the laser swords. And he does help a lot of defense. It cancels a lot of treacheries and does a fair bit of damage in my experience. He's expensive, but I think I might think about including him and maybe cutting someone like Martin X or Lockjaw, since I don't have a ton of resources to play Lockjaw. I think one of those two might get cut for me. But those are just suggestions without having played it.
I totally see that. And it's hard in that, like, I see Lockjaw as a oh no moment. I'd use a different word, but I'm not sure how YouTube feels about it.
Yeah.
But it's like that, I need to do something quickly, so I'm going to bring Lockjaw back out. Yeah. And so agreed of like, if you can avoid something like that, then, you don't have to include him in, especially with how many ways this deck can help solve other answers in case you wanted to stretch out of your Timmy personality and do a little bit more.
Yeah, I want to get away in 2025. One of my goals is getting away from calling cards bad or good. I think those are really reductive. So I don't want to say Lockjaw is a bad card. I think Lockjaw is a very situational card. And often if you're playing Lockjaw, something is wrong with your deck. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think if you're finding yourself with too many resources, nothing to play, and the only thing you can do is pull an ally who's okay out of your discard pile, maybe you should, take some of it back to formula and kind of relook at some of the things. The big exception, of course, is Bishop, who just is always swimming in resources. I think I include Lockjaw a lot in those builds, and he's basic too. But other than that, is Lockjaw really better than playing Cut Upper or Concussive Blow or whatever? I don't know. So
I mean, it's the same, right? Like you bring out this card that's going to do some damage and then defend for you. So might as well let it be Tackle, where it did some damage and the stun will take care of the attack.
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna have that many times in this deck where you're gonna be like, oh man, I have all these resources, nothing to do.
Where's Lockjaw?
Yeah, quick.
Every time I'm particularly cursed with Lockjaw, and I know we have one last one to do. As much as I feel like every time I need him, he's in my deck and not my discard pile. That
happens a lot too. And he is a guardian. If you've got a few guardians here, could have included Nowhere.
Yeah. Great way
I don't know.
Great way to get a card out of it.
Not necessary, but Mr.
How very Johnny of you. How very Johnny of you.
I'm sorry, I should stop. This is Timmy, damn it. This is his day. Okay, so that is Gamora, the Perfect Host by Fluff Daddy. Go check it out. Give him a like.
Play the bomb.
Play the bomb. Enjoy the bomb. And maybe you'll find this deck is the bomb. And if you find it is not the bomb or it is not to your taste, that's okay because we have one more deck today, listeners and viewers, and I am going to share with you today. Before I do, I'm going to say a few things. We were looking through the aspects and we're trying to pick a deck in every aspect that is very Timmy. And I settled on, we debated a little bit. Spoiler alert to the fans out there. Andy and I talk outside of the show. I know. I didn't mean to give it away. I'm sorry, Andy.
Oh, man.
We were talking and we were trying to figure it out. And we had some trouble thinking of decks in protection that were very Timmy. And maybe this isn't a Timmy deck, but I thought of a card in protection that I think is a very Timmy card. Very big, very splashy. And it Stand Together, which is a 4-cost event. It's an alliance event, which says, Hero Interrupt. When a friendly character would take any amount of damage from an attack, exhaust an Avenger character and a Guardian character, prevent all of that damage, deal that much damage to the attacking enemy. So it has potential to be very splashy, very big, but it's hard to pull off. So in my searching through Marvel CDB, I searched through a lot of decks and didn't find a ton of Stand Together decks. Now, I do know that Brant, who is a listener of the show and a watcher of the channel, he is a big fan of these Alliance cards. He's a big fan of Stand Together. So, Brant, I didn't see a deck that you made in there. Maybe I missed it, but hit me with a deck list, please, because I know you're a big fan of this card. Anyway, moving on. I settled on one of my own decks, which is something that I said I wasn't going to do. So, I apologize in advance. But also, we gave you 5 decks instead of 2 today, so why are you complaining? Just saying. No, but here we are. So, the deck is, of course, a Vision deck.
Of course it's a Vision deck if it's a Boomguy deck. That makes perfect sense.
Surprised. Anyway, it's called Minion Control Viz. I published this more than a year ago. I don't remember. And the basic idea of this deck is, this is before Come Get Me Bub, so there was no way to really summon minions outside of aggression. And this is a twist on the classic aggression minion build. It uses his intangible form, of course, to minimize it, and then it uses pins down, Iceman, Karma, all kinds of things we can to mitigate minions, and then it uses Stand Together as kind of the central piece, because Stand Together is a card that is not traded as defense, so it doesn't count as defending, but it does effectively defend. So it has a bunch of Guardian allies in here, and the idea is that you will exhaust yourself and one of your allies, or maybe you exhaust Victor Mancha or someone that you don't need to do anything with, to play Stand Together, take a big attack, prevent all that damage, and send it all back. Other than that, you're using Pin Down, which effectively in intangible form means you have -4 attack on anybody, any minion attacking you, which takes care of every minion I know of. But they still activate, so even if they attack for 0, you can use Charlie 27 to defend that activation and still deal damage back, slowly whittling away these minions. Anyway, it's a minion control deck. I don't know if it's great. It's maybe ultimately not a Timmy deck. The more I talk about it, there's a lot of things going on here, but the central thing is Stand Together to splash a bunch of damage back. That's what we came up with in protection. If someone has a better protection Timmy deck, please let me know. If you have any other Timmy decks, before we discuss this some more, please let me know, because I love hearing people's decks. I love when people post decks in the comments, or they email me, winninghandpodcast@gmail.com. Hit me on Discord, Boomguy or Andy R, to tell us your decks, because we want to feature more of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, this deck has Charlie 27, Iceman, Karma, Rock Slide, Starhawk, and Victor Mancha. It's 3 copies of Ever Vigilant, 3 copies of Reboot, and 3 copies of Stand Together. The classic 3 double resources, 2 powers of protection, Quinn Carrier,
standard,
Deft Focus, and 3 Pin Down. A lot of this is a pretty standard, Vision deck. But
yeah, I love it.
I played this a lot, so I won't talk too much more about it. Andy, I don't know if you've played. You probably never played this deck.
I have played it. I actually commented on it. So I did. So I found out about this deck when I had no idea about the Winning Hand podcast, and you had actually left a comment on a Ghost Spider deck of mine about the podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I checked out and saw this one. played it and was like, this is such a good deck, especially like the tools we had at the time to do minion control. This just amplified on all of that. I can only imagine Come Get Me Bub makes it even better, even Change of Fortune because you have Charlie 27.
Mhm.
At the same time, I think, yeah, I want to affirm of like Stand Together to me is a big Timmy card in that like some of these villains, their attacks can get so high these days. Like I think of Thanos, Magneto, all of them
Mhm.
that even Ronan can have
Ronan?
attacks that are like 10 or 11 damage.
Juggernaut? Yeah.
Juggernaut, absolute. Like you could almost try to build a deck about just pushing Juggernaut's damage back on him.
Mm.
But like if you fire 10 damage back at the villain in one turn, like that is basically as a player how much damage per player you needed to do your part in
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah.
And so like I could imagine someone could make a one shot Venom deck or where they play against Venom,
Mhm.
get a ton of those boost icons, and then stand
Mm.
together, end him. Just
I
end
like
him.
that. I like that idea. Maybe play with a pool player, just like amplify icons and stuff.
That's right. Just like
Um,
up the amount of damage.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think this is an older deck now. I mean, we feature some of them that are older, so it's not. Maybe you would change things, and maybe it's not super up to date. But I don't think I would add "Come Get Me, Bub" as a strong Vision player. I think "Come Get Me,
Sure.
Bub" is not a great card for Vision. Actually, it often just like he doesn't always need the health. The tough doesn't do a lot. If you're getting -2, it feels bad to like
Yeah.
you get attacked for 3 and it costs you a tough card, but really it was only 1. Anyway, Stand Together is awesome for him, and I think Stand Together is just a fun card. I really
Yeah.
like these alliance cards. I really think they're fun. I think it's a cool design space. I think
Yeah.
some of those early ones missed a little bit for me. They're all a little expensive for what they are.
Yeah.
I think all of them could cost 1 less, maybe other than the aggression one, as 1 is probably okay at 2. But Stand Together could, I think, definitely cost 3. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. 4 is a lot to pay.
Yeah. 4 is a lot to pay. It definitely feels like on some of those earlier ones that you were paying for the alliance keyword. That because it was alliance, it costs a little bit higher. I think, especially in some of the newer ones that we get today, they feel a little more what I imagine to curve to be, if not even maybe a little bit better. But
Yeah.
like even Team Investigation, that's like 2 per player, remove 3 per player from the game or something like. I think it's and it's just like, oh, that is like everyone did their own For Justice together, and you
Mhm.
just as a team For Justice the scheme.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I like the cost per player, and I hope that comes back. I think that was a cool idea.
yeah,
We did a whole podcast episode about Team Investigation a while ago when it was still new. Spoiler alert, it's not very good. But so I'll save you 45 minutes. You don't, so you
you
better
could
give me a
still
like.
listen to
That's
it,
true. You
but
could still listen to it. But we didn't like it very much at the time. I
sure.
don't know if it's aged well.
I
Anyway,
still don't see it in a ton of decks. Like I try to look at a lot on Marvel CDB and be able to comment, especially if I've played it. But I don't see Team Investigation an awful lot. I mean, same to Stand Together, like you said. Like people aren't necessarily
no.
looking at that card and building around it. And I think, man, this is a good chance if someone wants to take that challenge or build some more Timmy decks into Marvel CDB because I
Yeah.
don't think there are that many, and that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Of like only some characters get Timmy decks, and that's I wish there were more that way.
I want to hear from Timmy players. Like,
Yeah.
leave a
What do they
comment.
play?
Let me know, what are you playing and how do you think, like how we have defined Timmy players, because neither of us are one. How do you see it? Do you identify with the Timmy archetype, and do you identify with the decks we've talked about today? Do you have other ones you'd recommend? Like, let me know for sure. I'm very interested to hear that stuff.
Yeah.
I think Stand Together is a card like Dive Bomb that you build around,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't think it's good enough most of the time to really build around.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the sad truth of Stand Together, although it's such a cool idea. And I
It's
really love
such a
the
cool
art,
idea.
so maybe we'll talk about it on the podcast someday. And if we do, listener, act surprised that you have heard these takes.
What?
Not before.
He thinks this about Stand Together? Did
Yeah,
not see that coming.
I know. I know. Well, what can I say? Okay, so those are the decks that we have today. I don't really have anything else to say about this deck. Do you have anything else to say about Minion Control Viz?
No, I think I would classify this as a Timmy deck.
Yeah, I think it's a Timmy deck. I think the decks we talked about today were fun. I enjoyed
Agreed.
them. I had a kind of a hard time finding Timmy decks on Marvel CDB.
Same.
Yeah. So again, viewers, listeners, let me know. Leave a comment down below. I want to know from you all, if you are Timmys, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? If you're not Timmy, just generally, if you're watching and you like this series, let me know. Send us some decks that we can feature. Like I'm just
Yeah.
spending time browsing Marvel CDB, but I'm just one guy, and that does have a limit. I'm not going to see every deck. I really have been making more of an effort recently to look at the new decks as they are posted, to leave comments for people, to leave a like for people's decks, especially if they're from deck builders that are new or don't have a very high score, which may indicate they're new. I've been trying to be more involved because
Yeah.
I think the site is a great asset. It's a great resource for the community. And, it means a lot when you're starting out. You post your first deck, and it just feels like you're throwing things into the well sometimes. But it's cool when someone, leaves a deck, whoever it is, leave a comment and they say, hey, cool deck. I like this. I like that. And I try not to leave the usual comments that we have, or just like, why not X or why not Y? It's like,
Right. You always want to assume that they did what they wanted to with the card pool that they had.
yeah,
And I think it's totally cool. Like from my side, like I don't mind people can say whatever they want.
sure.
But as far as like if they're like, hey, when I played it, I made this substitution, and I think that's really cool. Like
Yeah.
I'm glad you did. For some reason that may not have been what I was thinking or how it worked out with me, but like at least then when other people, like I hope even with the pool one, I hope when other people look at it and they think, I am going to use plot convenience. Like that is going to up the multiplayer value of that deck. It is going to make Mulligan even more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a great card. It's a great comment. But yeah, I agree with you of like getting to help people like realize like, hey, your deck has been seen. And I think that's really cool that you gave this flavor of this combo, or that you centered around this card that I don't see that often. Like, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and when I see new combos or new things, I'm always try to shout that out. But I think a lot of people, a lot of time I think there's this idea that posting a deck on Marvel CDB has to be novel, has to be new. You have to have thought of some new combination that no one's done before, and that's nonsense. Post whatever deck you have. If you're new to the game, if you're not new to the game, if you don't build a lot of decks, if you just had a deck that you built that you think is cool, play it. Post it. Let us see what it is. I posted a deck recently, an Iceman deck, which is Justice Iceman. I'm sure someone built a Justice Iceman deck that is very similar, if not the same deck, but I hadn't seen them. I hadn't played it, and it's just not incumbent on me to like search through and make sure that whatever I'm posting hasn't been posted before. I played the deck. I thought it was cool. I did a write-up and I posted it. So please do the same.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, that is all for us today. This one a little bit longer, but you got more than double what you're used to, which is 5
Yay.
decks. We hope you enjoyed each of them. Please, if you did, go give the decks a like, give the decks a comment. And if you're not too busy doing that, I wouldn't mind a comment either. Hit that thumb, hit that subscribe. It's fine. But if you only have time for one, please go see the deck builders and shout out their decks, because that's what we're here for. Andy, we will see everybody the next time. Thanks for being here with me, and we will round this up in another episode very soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.